got no way into Ophir anymore. Mission accomplished.
The intensity of the vibrations is soothing, hypnotic. They make me so tired.
Dear old Scott. My machine's caressing you with rumbles. Sweet talking ya.
Thanks to you, the city won't ever have to face another attack like the last. All those people wounded because of those broken shutters. Just thinking about it, I feel nauseous.
It's probably the rover. Gotta get used to the vibrations. Most people fucking puke their ass out their first time.
No, I meant the thought of all the... Never mind.
I really don't get it. This is war, right? Aurora shows up and blows up part of our city, and how do we retaliate? Send a handful of people like us? I don't get it.
You ever do anything but bitch? Successful mission. Tripping a rover. Hell, if I was you, I'd be grinning ear to ear. Why don't you do that? Bitch less, smile more. Sir, I've got, something to ask you.
What can I do for you?
Well, I don't know if you know, but my dad died when I was young. Actually, he disappeared. He never came back from one of his explorations 15 years ago.
I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't want your pity, okay? It's not about that. What I mean is, I've never managed to find out what kind of mission he was on and where he had gone. I know he was close to Scott. He was probably even his best friend. That old crazy man doesn't want to tell me anything. He says he wants to protect me. Look, I'll just cut to the point. I was wondering if you'd maybe look in his dispensary for me. See if you could find any of my father's notes, or letters, or...
I don't know, Amelia. Scott's like a father to me. Then besides, you know he's almost always there. How would I even do it?
I'm not asking you to break in or steal nothing. Just keep him busy. And while you are there, you know, just flip through files. I'm sure he kept letters between him and my dad. He's not one to throw anything away.
All right. I'll try to make him leave, but if I don't find anything...
Yeah, I won't blame you. But I know that you're going to find something. Hello, Mancer.
Hello. Do you know Captain Eliza?
What a woman. Nothing gets by her. Too old-fashioned and boring. She doesn't laugh often, but at least she's fair. She's your captain, right? Believe me, it could have been worse.
Did you get to meet Colonel Victor?
Yeah, once, during a medal ceremony. Not exactly an open book, but I doubt anyone questions his die-hard patriotism. Why are you asking?
He came to talk to me. I wonder what he has in mind.
Is he freaking you out? You one of those people who are afraid of being watched? Don't be. He was most likely just interested in an officer with high prospects. If you're clean, you've got no reason to be worried, right?
Do you know Colonel Mancer?
The one whom your colleagues call Great Master? Sounds a little cultish, huh? I've seen him a couple times. That old man looks nice, but beyond that, I don't know. Ain't easy to figure you out. You Technomancers are always by yourselves. You probably know him better than me.
What do you know about the Vori?
That they're a bunch of assholes. They're behind all the shit going on around the city. Extortion, forced prostitution, corruption. The worst stuff out there, I bet you there's a Vori behind it. If I were you, I wouldn't get close to those guys. It's the best way to end up completely corrupt or completely dead.
You travel a lot. You must know the merchants well, no?
Well, actually, not really. I sometimes see a few of them on remote roads. Those guys crisscross the planet, and not only the shadow paths. They use sand sails, which don't give them as much flexibility as a rover. Still pretty smart, though. They don't even seem to mind traveling at night, unlike most corporate folks, because Mars is their landscape. They know it better than most. Ever hear about their secret city? Dunno if that's true. I respect their being free and well-traveled, but I've never had the opportunity to chat with them. And I'm cautious of people who are not loyal to anything.
What do you think of Scott? You know him well.
Know him well? That's an exaggeration. He doesn't actually say much about himself. Most of the time, he's on his own planet. Before he gets back down to Mars, well, we lose radio communication. He's nice. He regularly checks in to see how I am. He used to bring me gifts when I was young, but he can't help commenting on the chances I take and all. It pisses me off. I like him, but he's not my father, I mean.
What do you think of Jeff?
He's kind of a simpleton, don't you think? Too much of an ass-kisser. I wonder if he's that straightforward. Anyway, he's just a hick trying to get promoted.
Can I ask you about David?
Well, still shell-shocked by the front. I've seen hundreds of them. He blames the whole planet. He's probably not such a bad guy, but by blaming everybody, he pisses everybody off.
I bet you know the slums very well, given it's where your shed is.
Well, yeah, and so what? You must know the place better than I do. I know that you used to be a rogue before, despite a few old, unfortunate shacks that collapsed. It hasn't really changed. It's a sort of ant farm where derelicts who can't afford to live elsewhere pile on top of each other. And there's a lot of ants.
Can you tell me more about the sheds?
You're quite curious. That's where we park, repair, and pamper the rovers. They're under close watch because we can't take any chances with the slums all around. The Vori could sneak in and steal stuff. But we couldn't put them elsewhere anyway. We're not gonna cross the city every time we need to get out. Anyhow, if there's something you should do when you get into my sheds, it's this. When you come in, don't touch anything. Don't get close to the rovers, and if you want something, you ask me.
You must have traveled a lot. Could you tell me more about what you discovered?
You know, when I'm being sent out to explore, it's for prospecting. I drive around, take samples, map out the area, that kind of thing. I discovered 2 mines last year. We'll put them into service once we connect them with the shadow paths. Wow, it doesn't sound as exciting now that I think about it. But I don't care. Despite all of this, I can go almost anywhere. I see landscapes that others will never see, and sometimes I stumble across amazing places. I'm not doomed to remain under a shell of metal.
Hello, Scott. My captain told me that she wanted to see you.
Is it related to you? Are you sick?
No. Not that I know of. She didn't tell me why.
Oh, well, should I take my pouch then? It's an important question. I should still take it though, but it's a little heavy. All right, I'm leaving without it.
I think I have a problem with going through your friend's things. I hope whatever you're looking for, it's worth it.
I'm trying to find information about the past. It's personal, okay?
Forget it. Couldn't understand. The officers, they aren't like us. They're above all that.
Hello, Mancer.
Hello? I found some of your father's letters.
I knew it. Tell me.
Most of the correspondence was friendly. They were very close. However, there was some tension between them over time. Some letters gloss over an expedition that they had done together, but what surprised me the most is when your father talks about a boy who was actually Scott's son. The last letter I found is a bit bizarre. I didn't really understand what he meant.
What did he mean? Do you remember?
Your dad begged Scott to stop the madness, warning that his wife's divorce was only the beginning of what he would lose if he couldn't face the truth. That it was too late for his son. He seemed to think Scott was on the verge of self-destruction.
It's true that it's rather mysterious. Scott, a son. Did you know?
No, he never told me about him. He obviously lost him. No doubt it's still a touchy subject.
We have to find out what this is all about. You have to ask his wife. Did my father really mean to interfere in his family drama? Maybe that's why he disappeared? Please, Zachariah!
I'm sorry to... You Angela Seeker, Scott's wife?
Ex-wife? What did the drunk do this time?
Nothing bad. He's a friend.
A friend? Right.
Just looking for some information on one of his friends. Mark. And your son.
Get out. Get out! What right do you have coming around digging up the past?
Listen, I think Mark's disappearance was tied to Scott's research, and your son. And I know you were a researcher too, so I'm hoping you'll be able to help me understand the research better. Maybe even find your old friend.
The drive to dissect even the smallest details, to try to understand how and why. That thirst once drove me too, but I let it go. There was no well deep enough to satisfy that thirst. I was never as involved as Scott. In truth, I began to give up my work once we had our son. The focus of my research had been the study of animal mutations with the goal of vaccine production. And always wondered if... Because of that, I had been the conduit that carried the infection to my son. Scott was more interested in genetics and its medical applications. The second our son showed signs, though, I completely stopped my research. If I hadn't told Scott, he would never even have noticed. And his answer was to swear he could find a cure. He really believed that with his work in genetics and mine in vaccination, that we could save our son. But I was too devastated to help him. All I wanted to do was spend every second with our son before he was taken away from us. Which, of course, happened. And Scott and Mark took off on a wild goose chase that he was sure would end in a cure. I didn't get it. There wasn't anything he needed that he didn't have access to in his lab. And while he was off, I was alone, and waited, and eventually got tired of it. So I asked for a divorce, and then they finally came back, with nothing to show for it. But soon Mark took off again to find what I guess were raw materials for research that Scott swore he couldn't find here. And that was the last I saw of him. That's all I know. I never found out what their research was on, and honestly, I just want to forget it all. Please now, can you leave me be?
Hell, I can feel for what the old man's been through. I've known some folks myself who went through the same thing. Breaks couples up, you know. Stress of never being able to have kids again.
Why never again?
Because they sterilize families who've had a mutant to make sure they don't have no more.
It's sad, but it's the only way to protect our own kind. At least now I understand why the professor's so... weird.
Hello, Mancer.
Hello? I talked to Scott's ex-wife.
So, what did she say?
It's an awful story. Her son. Anyway, their son was struck by mutation. They took him away from them, of course, but it made Scott go crazy, and he was convinced that he could find a remedy. He asked for your father's help, so they left together, and were gone for a long time. Their exploration apparently didn't lead to anything concrete for the boy, and Scott descended into madness. And then one day, Mark left. His ex thinks that it was to bring back something useful for his research, and he never came back.
Shit. So my father's disappearance is related to that poor kid? It's really awful what they must have gone through. That explains a lot about why he's so crazy, and also why he behaves as if we were his kids. Thank you, Zach. That doesn't answer all my questions, far from it, but I have a better grasp of what happened. My father disappeared by helping his best friend, who was going through a rough patch and wanted to heal his child. It's a sad but beautiful story, isn't it? I'm gonna think about all this. Thank you again.
You're not like other girls, are you?
Is that supposed to be a compliment? Or are you being a wise ass?
You just don't talk like the rest.
I drive a rover. I don't sit around sipping brightly colored drinks with brainiacs talking about the philosophies of life. You don't like the way I talk? Take a number and shove it up your educated ass. Take any one of them uppity shits and put them in a rover, driving through sandstorms and seeing crazy shit every fucking day, and tell me they won't start talking a little more colorfully.
Easy, killer. I'm not judging you. Doesn't bother me. I was just saying.
You were a fucking rogue before, so unless the army made you soft and... Sorry. Just a little defensive. Hear that shit a lot.